float. They all float.
Come here, son. You like it down there.
You'll never have to grow up.
Rather unique in the sense that you don't seem to be jumping on the extraterrestrial visitors bandwagon.
That's what was the main point of disagreement with Steven Spielberg. When I met Steven Spielberg, he was about halfway through filming Close Encounters, and we had a long discussion about what UFOs could be. And of course, for him, the main point of the movie was entertainment, and it was appropriate for the UFOs to be extraterrestrial visitors. I think that from my own point of view, I'm going to be very disappointed if UFOs turn out to be nothing more than visitors from another planet, because I think they could be something much more interesting.
Something from another dimension of space or time?
I think what the UFO phenomenon is teaching us is that we don't understand time and space. Mm-hmm. Here are objects, I think we have to call them objects, that are physical, that interact with the environment, that cause effects on the witnesses, on the psychology and the physiology of the witnesses, and leave traces on the ground, and yet are capable of, appear to be capable of manipulating time and space in ways that go beyond what our physics understands today.
In your books, particularly your most recent book, Messengers of Deception, which is many years old, you suggest that UFOs are deliberately trying to manipulate our subconscious mind, to create a mythology in our culture about themselves, which is one of the reasons that they're both physical and concrete, yet very elusive at the same time. Do you still feel that way?
I think to answer that, I'm not trying to evade your question, but to answer that, you have to step back, you know, a little bit farther. What we know today about the UFO phenomenon is considerably more than we knew 20 years ago or 10 years ago. And we have to understand it at three different levels. And the first level is the physical level. And all we can say about UFOs at the physical level is that it's a lot of energy in a small space. In the space of this, if we could take the energy of a nuclear reactor and contain it within this studio, for example, you'd have something that would approximate what a UFO does. It's a lot of energy in a small space emitted through light energy and through pulsed microwave energy. The second level is what happens to witnesses, what would happen to you and me if we were close to that source of energy. And again, now we're beginning to understand the physiological and the psychological correlations of a close encounter.
Yes.
And those have to do with a loss of the sense of space, loss of orientation. I've had witnesses tell me we were driving north when they were, everybody knows they were driving south. They were disoriented at the time. Loss of a sense of time, people thinking that only 10 minutes went by and 3 hours went by. Very often effects on the skin, sunburns, I think that was shown in Close Encounters.
Yes.
Effects on the eyes, going from conjunctivitis to blindness, to temporary blindness in some cases.
And sometimes you've mentioned people have actually been healed of diseases.
There have been cases where after a UFO close encounter, it seems that the healing process had been sped up. Now there are known techniques now using electromagnetic radiation that will heal the fractures, for example, or will heal superficial wounds on the skin, but nothing that would heal as fast as the reported effects.
Yeah.
So we're beginning to understand at least the descriptions, the symptoms of the exposure to whatever UFO is. And then there is a third level, which is where the level I was addressing in Messengers of Deception, which is a social level.
The impact on our culture.
Yes, and the impact on our belief systems. And at that level, and that's something that's very difficult to convey to the believers in UFOs, the believers in little green men from space, that at that level it really doesn't matter whether UFOs are real or not. If enough people believe that something is real, then it is real in its effects.
In terms of its social reality.
In terms of the social reality, in terms of what people act according to their beliefs.
Yeah.
And that opens a question of, really at two levels, could the UFO phenomenon be manipulating us? Could it be a teaching system of some sort? Perhaps something that we are creating ourselves, perhaps a series of images that we are projecting. I think Carl Jung came very close to expressing that idea in one of his books. Or could it be manipulated purposely by people who have the technology to simulate UFO sightings? And people say, well, of course not. Who would do a thing like that? Well, I would remind you that during the Watergate investigation, it was discovered that there was a plan originated in the White House to surface a submarine off the coast of Cuba and paint the second coming of Christ over the island of Cuba using holograms.
I caught some of it.
What is that?
In the UFO community who truly believe that our space brothers are going to come down and somehow save us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That ain't going to happen. Okay, it's just not going to happen. Number one, it's against the non-intervention rule. Okay, the
Yeah.
prime directives, if you will.
Mm.
Number two, if they're the least bit hostile, if they're in any way envious of our world, then why risk losing an invasion battle? Why don't you just sit back, let us kill each other off, and then they can just come in and take the planet?
Yeah.
And so I just don't think, whether they're benign or not so benign, I don't think we're going to see alien intervention in saving us, okay? We're going to have to save ourselves, and that means we got to educate ourselves to what's really going on. We got to educate ourselves to the real meaningful topics of discussion, such as environmental degradation and the poisoning of our foods, the chemtrails, the chemicals that are being dumped in the atmosphere, the weaponization of space, you know, all of these issues. This is what we have to concentrate on rather than the game shows and the celebrities and the sports events. And then we have to work towards it, but we work at it not from a fearful perspective. Oh, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and you know, it's never going to be any better. We have to go at it from a standpoint of love and optimism and think, you know, this is a pretty nice world. Let's keep working to keep it nice and even make it better.
Because the truth exists on different levels and different angles depending on perspective and your position in time.
Plans to create a mock alien invasion. I have talked briefly on the radio for Prophecy Club about the flying saucers. Somebody very high up in the New World Order, who was brought to Christ by a close friend of mine, has talked about piloting the flying saucers. Yes, the United States government has flying saucers. And before he became a Christian, he considered that the beings that were co-piloting these flying saucers were aliens. But then when he became a Christian, he took a second look and realized they were demons. It's rather interesting. I have tape recordings of some of the aliens talking. They send shivers up my back. They sound exactly like I would imagine a demon to sound like.
Then I rebooted my phone, and when I rebooted it, my screen came on, but the mute button was pressed. Okay, guys, listen to me. I'm about to ready to burst into uncontrollable tears because of what happened. As soon as my phone came on, I'm going to play for y'all what was coming over my phone.
later in the mission as to
convinced, Doctor, through your research, that this is a hidden hand, that there are aliens, no matter where they may come from, who are here.
Yes, I have personally experienced it. It's a matter of knowledge and experience with me, not even a conjecture.
Not even a question.
No, no question. What they are, I cannot tell you, and I don't think anyone else can either, but they're not us.
And as to their purpose, all you're sure of is you don't know.
Well, on my list of facts, number 2 on the list is that at least some of these creatures are consummate liars and deceivers. This is a fact. There is no doubt. And the evidence goes back to the beginning of the contactee scenario all the way through reports I've gotten in the last week from cases that are ongoing now.
All right, give me a good example. What makes you believe they are consummate liars?
Well, they have made, over the years, to particular individuals a number of very specific predictions or warnings or scenarios that have never come to pass. Sometimes small events that they predict in the beginning of a list of warnings or predictions will occur, which makes the person who's received this list of predictions take the list at a very credible level and prepare for these other things to happen, and then they do not happen. Now, this goes back to the early 50s as far as reports of interactions and communications from these creatures. They also have given a number of contradictory explanations to various abductees for the same procedures or the same part of the agenda. For instance, and as I talk about this in Taken, one woman was shown at one point during some of her encounters a cloned copy of her body. It was inert. And well, this happens in a number of cases. Many people have reported seeing inert human bodies. Sometimes copies of themselves, sometimes not, just other bodies. And one case, Pat was told that these bodies were for the resurrection. Now, throughout Pat's experiences, a religious symbology was employed with her because it was she had a very strong basic faith.
By the way, is it your view that those who start out with a very strong religious faith attribute their experience to some sort of religious occurrence?
I think they may tend to, and I think that tendency is greatly amplified by the programming of the aliens themselves. They'll take on whatever guise works or follow whatever procedure really accomplishes their program.
Let me take it from their point of view for a second. Why do you think that these beings are not connected to what we think of as traditional religion in some way? A lot of religious people will say, well, these are devils, or they're angels, or they're spirits, and this is not an area we should be even looking into.
Well, my personal answer would be that they do not behave in the reports we have from abduction accounts anything like, or very seldom anything like, any of the reports of spirits and angels in our religious literature that these people use as the basis of their beliefs, for one thing. As I've said before, I have never yet found anywhere in the Bible where one of the angel's duties was a rectal probe on a 6-year-old child.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
All right, now that's a starting place for questioning that. Secondly, the entire range of their procedures with us make that very suspect. The physical activities are numerous, and nothing like this seems related to a spiritual agenda, if that's what they were pursuing. I will agree that they indoctrinate and program us throughout these encounters, if that's going to be effective with us, to take it on a spiritual level. For instance, with Pat, when they first abducted her entire family back in 1954, the creatures told her that, she said, "Are you angels?" And they said, "Yes, but not as you have been taught."
Oh, boy.
You know, but that works with Pat. In another case, with Lisa, she was also shown a clone of her body, And she was not told anything about a spiritual use for this when the resurrection, when Jesus returns and we get our new bodies. No, she was told instead that this body, well, it was used in a sense to threaten or warn her that if she were not cooperative with the ongoing program of whatever it is they're doing with her, that she could be replaced by this body and no one would ever know the difference. Those are not consistent answers.
I wonder how many of us have been replaced.
What they look like.
I could, but it would probably take a whole lot of time. The reason I state that, when I got out in 1989, we had cataloged 57 different species. You have individuals that look very much like you and myself that could walk among us and you wouldn't even notice the difference, except for some of the things that they might be able to go ahead, even in a dark room, and touch an object and go ahead and identify what color that object might be. They would have a heightened sense of smell, sight, hearing. The situation is that you have various types of what we normally call grays. We didn't call them grays in the military, but you had at least 3 types of the grays. You had some that were much taller than we were. The unique thing that I'd like to point out for the most part is that the entities that we did catalog were in fact humanoid. Now this created a situation where the scientific community was trying to figure out why that would be the case, because you would expect that if life evolved on other planets, that they would take on some type of other being, so to speak, not necessarily look humanoid or be bipedal such as we are. But apparently we got quite a few of the species out there that are humanoid in appearance, and that creates a question that yet has to be answered by science.
Yes, and lying wonders, and that he will transform himself into an angel of light, 2 Corinthians 11:14. He's trying to deceive people and get people to lose faith in the one true God, so they embrace a false religion and lose their souls so that he can get them into hell for all eternity. Because, and someone would say, why UFO, why a spacecraft? There actually probably couldn't be a better deception for the devil, because he throws your whole belief system out or attempts to do that, so that and replaces it with a different kind of belief system that's not true and will not lead to salvation.
UFOs and related subjects, an annotated bibliography. The author was the senior bibliographer for the Library of Congress, Miss Lynn E. Cateau. During her research, she read over 1,000 articles, books, and other literature. She summarizes her findings in the preface of the bibliography. A large part of the available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism and the metaphysical. It deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, and invisible entities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist manifestations and possession. Many of the UFO reports now being published in the popular press recount alleged incidents that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomenon that have long been known to theologians and parapsychologists. This document was compiled for the United States Air Force and is now in the Library of Congress. Dr. Jacques Vallée has addressed the United Nations on UFOs and was the model for Lacombe in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He is the author of 8 books on UFOs and has been widely recognized as the premier investigating scientist in the realm of UFO research. In his book, Messengers of Deception, Vallée says, an impressive parallel can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conception of demons. And in his book, Confrontations, he writes, the medical examinations to which abductees are said to be subjected, often accompanied by sadistic sexual manipulation, is reminiscent of the medieval tales of encounters with demons. He also made this statement, I believe that when we speak of UFO sightings as instances of space visitations, we are looking at the phenomenon on the wrong level. We are not dealing with successive waves of visitations from space. We are dealing with a control system. And he states, UFOs are the means through which man's concepts are being rearranged. They are engaging in a worldwide enterprise of subliminal seduction.
Jacques Vallée, at least at that time when he wrote that book, was an agnostic. Interesting that he comes to basically the same conclusions I do as a Christian from my research. And he said about UFOs, they're real, but they're not physical. They're messengers of deception. And this was based on his research of about 20 years. They seem to be psychologically preparing, setting us up for some ultimate delusion that is too horrible even to imagine as yet. I would agree with that.
Shadow people, but this is kind of a different kind of a shadow person. These are shadow people that once again are in your bedroom with you. They're described as fully formed beings, like it looks like human type bodies, but made out of pure darkness, walking around in your room while you're frozen stiff on the bed and watching it. Oftentimes people say this is accompanied with a very negative vibration or a very evil energy. Another character that a lot of these people who experience this phenomenon say that they see in their rooms, oftentimes accompanied by a couple of different shadow people, is the Hat Man. The Hat Man has been described by many people that experience this sleep paralysis as well. And of course there's also the gray aliens. Okay, now once again, when you start listening to these people's accounts, you'll see that time and time again a lot of people are experiencing the gray aliens. Now, you know, we've heard about this, and there's plenty of movies out there about this, about people's real-life experiences, but it's the whole alien abduction phenomenon, right? Well, that also ties in to the sleep paralysis, to these events. Now, of course, there's also the incubus and the succubus. There's the sex demon. Many people, both male and female, say they've actually had what feels like sexual experiences with these entities. Then there's also just the straight-up, in-your-face demon, right? Or demonic-looking entity with the horns and the fangs and all that stuff, right? Just exactly what we expect to see when we see a demon.
What really happened on that Thursday here at Augusta High School that led to Chris Wood's death? The fuck is that? Shit! And on that Thursday here at Augusta High School that led to Chris Wood's death.
These things have been with us for a very long time, and I am one of the people who definitely believe all of this is demonic.
Yeah, you're filming on my camera, you have a small camera. What's this, let me tell that ball again. Watch. Whilst it's recording.
No. What's up? No!
You see that, yeah? Right, if I give it a little squeeze, yeah, and just blow, it disappears completely.
What?
No, 1 second. Something in my shoe, 1 second.
Ah, shit!
Cup your hands together like that. What?
It's gonna drop, man. What? Hey! Hey!
Now wait.
No, don't lie.
Wait for it, watch this.
Come on, man.
What? Here's a wanker.
What?
Don't lie. That technique don't come out. That technique don't come out.
What?
Is that yours? You got cigarettes?
Yeah, cigarettes.
You got cigarettes here?
Yeah,
Take one.
Take one. Take one.
Grab one.
Grab one.
I'm gonna grab this one. The way you just picked it up again.
You ready? It don't matter if I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I was born that day.
You see this?
That's the day I was born.
Watch.
1977.
Check this out.
Hold on.
Give me this.
Oh!
That motherfucker put
Right here. Try this.
Oh, Lord. Wake up. Here's a cigarette. Smoke that.
What?
No, he's gonna make that motherfucker do something fucked up. He's gonna rip it up and make it go back together, I bet. Look, you could have that shit and put it in your pocket. $5. Yeah. Bro, look at. Fuck that, bro. He put the motherfucker back together. Hey, man, he put the fucking car back together. Rip that thing up, dog. With no tape.
The high priest of our society, secret society, has been told that the master has very special plans for you two.
Now, what did he mean by the master?
Satan. And we were interested to hear more about it. And he told us, he says, look, we worship spirits. The priest was telling us that the medical doctor that was telling us how he was making operations that had never been made before because people had to be awake, yet have no feeling. He was able to, carry on surgeries that had not been done before. Mm-hmm. But the spirits would give that capacity to be able to operate without people feeling any pain and things. And also without no problem with the blood, because as he would cut his incision, because his incisions, everything open and with no blood running. Mm-hmm.
See how it really looks like it's going through the hand?
Yeah.
And does it really look like it's actually...
It is, yeah. Oh, God, no.
Let's get safe. Let's get safe. Let's get safe.
These evil spirits who proceeded from the giants that are still roaming the earth, and they will do so until the days of consummation. Here's what they do. They attack, they afflict, they oppress, they destroy, they do battle, they work destruction on the earth, they cause offenses. And again, these spirits proceeded from the giants, who came from people and part spirit. And so their number one target are people.
Linked with mysticism and the metaphysical. It deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, and invisible entities, as well as phenomenon like poltergeist manifestations and possession. Many of the UFO reports now being published in the popular press recount alleged incidents that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomenon that have long been known to theologians and parapsychologists. This document was compiled for the United States Air Force and is now in the Library of Congress. Dr. Jacques Vallée has addressed the United Nations on UFOs and was the model for Lacombe in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He is the author of 8 books on UFOs and has been widely recognized as the premier investigating scientist in the realm of UFO research. In his book, Messengers of Deception, Vallée says, an impressive parallel can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conception of demons. And in his book, Confrontations, he writes, the medical examinations to which abductees are said to be subjected, often accompanied by sadistic sexual manipulation, is reminiscent of the medieval tales of encounters with demons. He also made this statement, I believe that when we speak of UFO sightings as instances of space visitations, we are looking at the phenomenon on the wrong level. We are not dealing with successive waves of visitations from space. We are dealing with a control system. and he states, UFOs are the means through which man's concepts are being rearranged. They are engaging in a worldwide enterprise of subliminal seduction.
Jacques Vallée, at least at that time when he wrote that book, was an agnostic. Interesting that he comes to basically the same conclusions I do as a Christian from my research. And he said about UFOs, they're real, but they're not physical. They're messengers of deception. And this was based on his research of about 20 years. They seem to be psychologically preparing, setting us up for some ultimate delusion that is too horrible even to imagine as yet. I would agree with that.
And he went with his, I guess, his girlfriend and the girlfriend, or two girlfriends, two girls. Look at the girl in the white t-shirt. All the way at the end. She's not supposed to be there. He didn't realize she was there until, look, now she disappeared. She's gone. Okay, she's gone. According to him, he was videotaping the two girls and himself in this thing, whatever they call, I forgot what they call them, sorry. And then when he got home, he realized there was a third person. But not during the whole time, he just, for a little bit, there was a third person that's not supposed to be there. He thinks it's the ghost of a young girl that died years ago, a few years prior to this, taking this video. He said it's true. He said he's not, he's the one who did the video, so he knows who's supposed to be there. Now, I tried to analyze the video, and I'm going to tell you that there's different things that I think is real. This thing is moving. This machine, whatever, I forgot what they call them, the roller coaster, is moving, okay? And once it moves, once it starts to move, you cannot get off. I know that for a fact because by mistake I went to one of those years ago, and I thought it was just going to be like a little train. I didn't know it was going to, I thought it was just going to go around like a little train, and I went on the wrong line. And once the machine started rolling, this roller coaster, they couldn't open it. And I almost put my pants in there in fear. I hate these things. In any case, once it starts moving, you cannot get off. So that's one thing. The girl couldn't have gotten off. That's one proof right there. The other thing is, nobody acknowledged this person. Look at the girls. You're going to see in the beginning. You can go back. I'm going to show you again. Nobody's looking at her. Nobody's acknowledging her. Is she the one? She's like a stranger there. She's laughing, having a good time, and she's the one that looks at them. And at one point, she kind of leans against the girl in the middle, but the girl never acknowledged her, like she's not there. So that's very strange. Those two things that I think is real, and I think It may not be a ghost, or maybe it is a ghost. It's very strange. I don't know exactly what it was, if it was a ghost or parallel universe, out of body, you know, all these things are possible because she has the same clothes almost like the girls, so it's another personality of these girls, another, you know, not split personality, but we had different personalities and from the same soul, but very strange.